Hi, good evening, and welcome to episode 9 of paranormal stories from my life, unusual things that I've experienced. And this is about, I'm an animal lover. I've had animals my whole life, and sadly, they don't live as long as we do. So I've not only loved and taken great care of many animals in my life, but also had to say goodbye to many of them, all of them, except the ones that are presently here with me now. So this is a story about a beautiful golden German Shepherd that we adopted from a family who was divorcing. When she was 7 years old, the family had to get rid of her because they were changing their living experiences and didn't include a 70-pound golden German Shepherd. They just didn't have a place that they could keep her. She was half German Shepherd and half Golden Retriever. That's why she was gold color. She looked like a German Shepherd, except that her body was a little heavier, but she was one of those legendary dogs that German Shepherds are like this anyway. They just know how to protect. They're very smart. They're very sensitive. And at the time, my youngest was a baby, and I had two older children who were 7, 8, 9, something like that. And my husband was traveling a lot. He was a regional manager for a large company, and we didn't live in the greatest neighborhood in the area we lived in, and I felt like I really wanted to have a dog to protect and to make me feel like I was less vulnerable. So I don't remember how, but we found this dog, and so we adopted her, and she indeed was very protective, and if I opened the door, she would come with me, and she would stand between me and whoever was out the other side of the door. Always. I didn't have to ask her, didn't have to train her. She just did that. Well, we ended up moving to another house, and then she got sick. She had a heart condition that could not be dealt with in any substantive way. So unfortunately, the day came when she passed away. Well, of course, I was very sad about that. And so we always have our animals cremated, so we did that. And a few weeks later, we had the lower part of our house. When you walked in the door, there was a very small foyer and a living room, and then to the right was a dining room. And that dining room had a bay window in it, and a big window on one side, and then the other side was the kitchen. And I walked over to that window one day on the side of the house, and when Miranda was alive, she loved to sit maybe 8 feet from that window because it was cooler on that side of the house. So she liked to sit over there. This is California again, and she had a heavy coat, so she liked to find the cooler places in the yard that were certainly more shady for much of the day, and this spot was one of them. And I would look out there and when she was alive, and I'd see her, and she loved that spot and was often there. And so fast forward to a few weeks or a few months after she passed, and I, for some reason, was in the dining room, and I looked out the window, and there, sitting on the grass, just where Miranda always sat, was a golden hawk this hawk's feathers were all gold. Now, I imagine that those might exist. I had never seen one. I lived in California my whole life. At any rate, here was this golden hawk sitting in the exact same place that Miranda had always sat. And this hawk just turned to look at me. And he didn't run away, or she didn't run away, didn't fly away, just sat there looking at me. And I was looking at her, trying to figure this whole thing out. And eventually, after a minute or two, she did fly away, and I never saw her again. But it was so unusual that I felt like that was Miranda coming back to let me know that she was okay. So that's my first event. And then the second one was that we had, I was given a small 6-pound Pomeranian, a little tan Pomeranian, teddy bear face, darling little thing. And I had him for quite a few years, although he was, the people who bought him, they bought him for less because he had some physical problems and he wasn't considered a show dog or anything like that. So anyway, they, for whatever reason, thought that they could not keep him, and so his name was Twink. And so my friend gave him to me, and that was just before we moved back east. So of course Twink came back east with us, and eventually also became quite sick, and then he started breathing in an unusual manner, and I was not home. I was working, and my oldest daughter called and said, I'm gonna take Twink to the vet. And I said, okay. So that's good, thank you so much. So she gathered up Twink and put him in her lap and proceeded to go to a vet that she thought was a good vet, to somebody that I didn't know, but I was happy for her to do that. And when she took the Twink into the vet office where, you know, you put the pet on a hot tall table and they examine them. And so my daughter left and was waiting in the waiting room, and the vet came out and said that Twink had died. Like, she just barely got him there, and then he passed. So of course it was just very upsetting to all of us. And so she arranged, there was a service there that would pick up your pet and have them cremated and then deliver the pet to you, to the cremains of the pet in a box. And so we had that done. And it was the next day, and my daughter and I were sitting in our living room, which was on the front of the house, and I don't know if we were talking about Twink or what we were talking. I don't recall. I don't think we were talking about Twink, but our house was on a half an acre lot, and the closest neighbor's house was about, I would say, 50 feet on either side. And there were a lot of creatures in the area and stuff, and so we're sitting there talking, and I was sitting on an antique settee, which I still have, and it was away from the wall about 2 feet, and there was kind of a seating area with a little bit bigger couch in this settee and coffee table and side tables and stuff. And so we're just sitting there talking, and we both heard, there was a scratching noise along the side of the house. And we both turn around and look, and, you know, what the heck was that? And it did that. It passed back and forth several times. And then the noise came into the room on the other side of the settee and was running on the carpet. We had kind of a longish carpet, and you could hear the little claws running back and forth in back of the settee. And we're both trying to figure out what's going on. We're both hearing that. Then it ran up. There was a step. The living room was slightly sunken. And so there was a step that went down into the living room. And then the noise, and we could not see him, but we could hear little claws running back and forth on the carpet, right in back of my daughter now, and then sort of down the dining side of the dining room table, and then back up. And we're just both dumbfounded that this is happening. And then it just stopped as quickly as it started. And we both knew that it had to be Twink. It was the day after. We think that he had been cremated, and he took off for home, and and he came to say goodbye, I guess. So that was a pretty astounding thing. And there were two people in the room. With Miranda, that was just me seeing this golden eagle, but both my adult daughter and myself were sitting in this room, and we both experienced the exact same thing. So that was little Twink coming to say goodbye. And so those are the two stories about animals that came back in one way or another to say goodbye to us, which was really darling. So thank you very much, and I'll be back tomorrow. Thank you, and God bless.